everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Mojo Rising, How to Make Cancer Suck Less. And this is a special double feature episode because you may have heard my Mojo Rising, What Do Survivors Do Differently? Episode 2 was with Trevor Clark, and he has an amazing survivor story. And during that survivor story, I invited him to come back because he taught me something I did not know was possible. And he figured out the herbs he could use to take his neuropathy away. So, in that episode, I invited him back for number 2, and you are listening to number 2 right now. So, hi, Trevor, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for coming back and talking with us today. And for all of you who haven't listened to that past episode, let me just quickly truncate your story down for them. And in high school, Trevor was driving home from a football game and got into a horrific car accident, which ended in him getting a spinal fusion surgery that went wrong. He woke up with fibromyalgia and neuropathy that was crippling in pain. He couldn't walk very well and was on lifetime of disability at age 19. So let's just set the scene there. And he was in a very dark place, told he wouldn't have long to live, or certainly wouldn't, his body wouldn't be able to withstand the pain medicine for longer than 10 or 15 more years. And so he got to work and went to the library and started to do his own research to figure out what other options existed. And I just love this part of teaching you how to be such an empowered patient, not be your own champion, and make sure that no is just your invitation to go figure out what else is possible. So Trevor, your story is one of my favorite survivor stories of all time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Oh, but so for most of our visitors here, they're interested in one topic, and that is neuropathy, because that impacts so many people with cancer. And when I think back to the early days of my cancer journey, I was worried about two things. One, was I going to live or die? And two, neuropathy, because frankly, neuropathy was the only side effect I couldn't outmaneuver for longer than treatment. So this was the one that really kept me up at night. So I worked and worked and worked and could not find anything that would work for existing neuropathy. Now I understand there's some different things you can do to prevent neuropathy if you before you start, but for existing neuropathy, and you really unlocked some perfect knowledge in this area. So can you first explain to our audience what is neuropathy?
Yeah, neuropathy is just damage or dysfunction in the nerves. Yeah. Usually in the peripheral nerves. Hands and feet is the most common, but you can't have neuropathy in other places.
And what did it feel like for you to have neuropathy? What is that experience like?
Oh, yeah. Mine was like a light switch because mine happened after a trauma or after a surgery. And I woke from surgery and my hands and feet were numb and my leg was numb and on fire. And I didn't understand why.
Wow. And how long did this go on for?
Almost 7 years. Almost 7 years.
Wow. Wow, that's something you don't want as a 7. Okay, I understand that. So, and
Yeah.
Trevor, this isn't abnormal. Like there's millions of people out there that are impacted by neuropathy. Is that right?
Yeah, from what I was reading, there's about 2 million people a year that are diagnosed with neuropathy in the United States. Uh,
So 2 million people out there, they're miserable because I know tons of people out there that are on different medicines, but none of them really impact the pain, from what I understand.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Narcotics don't really work for neuropathy. They just kind of dope you up, but they're not really they don't numb the neuropathy pain. And then the couple of medications that are out there that are used for neuropathy really just kind of they try to slow the pain signal transmission a little bit, but they really don't work that well. Nothing really touched mine. I was on several of them, and yeah.
Now, is would that be the same for all neuropathy? Because I believe there's different causes. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. There's different causes of neuropathy. And from what I can tell, they pretty much use the same medications. They just doctors don't have many tools in their toolbox for neuropathy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And some of the different types are diabetic induced, which is more about elevated blood sugars and oxidation of the cardiovascular system, which then causes damage to the nervous system. Toxin induced, which would be what your chemo drugs would be classified under when they do cause neuropathy, and alcohol abuse would be another toxin-induced neuropathy. And then you have trauma-induced, like from a surgery or a major accident or shock to the body. And then you have inflam- inflammation-induced. Couldn't get that word out there, could I? And that's a lot of like autoimmune conditions, and there's certainly some other things under the inflammatory condition category.
So that means there's probably a lot of different tips and tricks you had to learn to unlock the secrets for you. Can you give us just a play by play of like how did you figure this out? This thing, this problem that no one can figure out?
Yeah. So after all the time I spent in bed with my fibromyalgia and neuropathy, I then wanted to study herbs when herb healed my fibromyalgia and still had the intense neuropathy going on. Went to herb school, and while I was in herb school, there was also a medical doctorate program at the school. And one of my roommates, who was in the doctorate program, I believe in her last year, she told me about some research on some things for neuropathy and suggested I look into it. So I started combing through the PubMed research and trying different things and was able to find some things that worked really well for me in conjunction with herbs I was learning in herb school for nerve issues.
Wow. So it was a med school student roommate who really tipped you off to have you start searching for options.
Yeah.
And was it there's some trial and error? How did that work?
Yeah, there was some trial and error. And there can be lots of good information on things that can work or seem to work in animals or different things, but not everything pans out clinically. And so if you look up neuropathy on PubMed, there's a lot of info, but there's not everything on there actually has noticeable effects. So I went through trying some different things, and luckily I found success pretty quickly between supplements I read about in research studies and traditional herbs that would be used for the nervous system. And then over the years, I started trialing different things with different clients of mine as a clinical herbalist. And so I started to learn what to use herb and supplement wise for the different types of neuropathy.
How many years have you been in clinical service working with neuropathy? I forgot to ask that in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I could officially say since 2011.
Wow. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
that's well over a decade of experience with all sorts of different clients. And do you know, like, do you need to give a different cocktail to different people, or how does that work?
Yeah, yeah. So it's tailored protocols to the person, what's going on in their life, what the cause of their neuropathy is, and then is it an ongoing thing, or is it damage that was done and then they're just still having the after effects of neuropathy? It's you got to assess all those different aspects.
And does it matter, like, when you start? Does it matter if you've had neuropathy for years or if you've had neuropathy for 2 weeks? Does that matter at all?
It can. It just depends on the cause. So, like with mine, I was almost 7 years out when my neuropathy went away with treatment. For some people, so that's a pretty long time, right? Although mine does seem to be from a single point of trauma or a single point of damage to the nervous system. Some types, like diabetic neuropathy, if you have bad blood sugar control and you constantly have high blood sugars, and that's why you have neuropathy, you most likely have a long time of oxidative stress or oxidative damage going on to your system, to your cardiovascular and your nervous system. So we really have to address a lot of things, and some longer term cases in diabetics, you can see pretty significant results, and then some are like medium level results. But it's still a reduction in pain, a reduction in symptoms. So it's still a valuable thing to search out, but it's just different with each cause.
Okay, so it sounds like it doesn't matter when you start, you can always get some impact. But
Yeah,
Trevor, you just hit on something that I want to make sure we're being pretty real. And so I'm going to challenge you on what is realistic. So let's take it each
yeah,
cause. So what is realistic for someone who has gone through chemo or is currently in chemo? What's
yeah,
realistic for their recovery?
yeah. So clients of mine that have damage from chemo, if it's ongoing chemo, we can get on to the cause pretty quick with supplements that you would then show your doctor and your doctor would approve to use during the chemo process to stop the neuropathy in its tracks. Now, if you're post chemo and you're basically dealing with the fallout from the nerve damage from the chemo, and about 30 to 50% of chemo patients deal with neuropathy. Uh, just a number for your crowd out there. But if it's post chemo, then we have a little bit more work to do. But still, you can still see results in you start to see results in 2 to 4 weeks. And for some people, they might see it clear up in 2 to 4 weeks. And some people just might see a reduction in symptoms. And so we know we're on the right track. And then we take further adjust the plan based on what they need.
Okay, so that's for chemo. So it sounds like either one of the chemos are pretty well, you've got a handle on those. It's just a matter of how much time it's going to take and the cocktail of if it can be safe with chemo or not. And then,
Right.
of course, there's inflammation caused neuropathy. So what is different about inflammation caused neuropathy and the treatment strategy?
Yeah. So the most common inflammation induced are going to be from autoimmune conditions, where your immune system is attacking your body basically, for various different reasons we won't go into. But so you can start to address the damage, the attacking of your immune system against the nervous system, but also the autoimmune disease has to be addressed, which is outside my scope, but I have referrals and things for you. I have reference material for you to then take to your doctor on some things to try now. But that is outside my scope with this practice.
Okay, great. Now let's talk a little bit about toxin induced, because that's a little bit different from inflammation
Yeah.
induced. So, what's the realistic expectation for toxin induced neuropathy?
Yeah. Well, chemo-induced neuropathy is the most prominent toxin induced, right?
Okay.
There's also like alcohol abuse would be another good example that's prominent. But that's if you think about someone who's drinking and causing those issues, that's ongoing damage, constant, everyday, long-term damage. So that's you can still work with it, and we can still see results, but it's more difficult. So,
Got it. And then last but not least, diabetic induced.
yeah, diabetic induced. So diabetic induced doesn't just involve addressing the nervous system. We're also going to address blood sugar control. We're going to address diet. We're going to address lifestyle. Like, uh, what are you able to get any exercise? Oh, your feet are in too much pain to get exercise. Okay, well let's discuss some things you can do. It's going to involve a lot of things like that. Yep.
Okay, so now let me just get this straight. So for you're going to give support besides just the herbs for diabetics, and you feel that issue pretty close to home, right?
It's true. I'm type 1 diabetic. I've been diabetic since I was 4 years old. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool
So
that you can really understand that situation and how you've managed it and give real world support in that perspective as well.
for sure, yeah. Well, while my neuropathy is not diabetic induced, it was caused by the surgery or the car wreck. Um, I worry about diabetic induced. It's like, well, because I just feel prone to nerve damage now, even though that may not be realistic. And so yes, it's something I've studied in depth and worked with people on because it's so important. Yeah.
Now, from what I know about herbs, and this is one of the things I love the most about herbs, is it typically doesn't have that many side effects. So, Trevor, can you walk through what the side effects would be from this sort of protocol?
Yeah, so I pay very close attention to herb drug interactions and making sure not to recommend anything that would be in conflict with any prescription drugs you're on. Um, and some of the very most of these things do not have side effects. Most of them are considered what you might say like dietary grade herbs or supplements. Um, but like one of the few things is one of the supplements I give in 5% of the population, it causes a little bit of upset stomach. And in that case, I have an alternate compound that I can give that does the same job. It's just a different supplement. So pretty minor overall and pretty rare. But yeah,
Okay, now the other part I love about herbs is they don't only impact one thing. So I think the many of these herbs will positively impact our neuropathy, but they'll also do other things for us. So can you talk about some of the other side benefits that could come from taking some of the concoctions that you're creating for people?
yeah. So yeah, so like you said, herbs have multiple actions going on, which is really fun. And a lot of researchers kind of find it very confusing. So but it's really a beautiful thing. So, like some of the herbs we're taking that we'll use to address nerve health also have the effect of boosting natural killer cell activity. Just a natural immune function that's normally scouring the body or upregulates production kind of in precancerous phase. So it's a nice secondary preventative action that people like in the supplement world. And then I'm trying to think of some other ones, secondary actions. Some of them have direct healing actions as well as pain relief actions on the nervous system.
That's cool. Well, I love that it's not just a one focus. You get multiple different benefits from using these herbs. Okay, now what does it actually look like? So like you have all this knowledge in your brain. What does it actually look like to work with you to figure out how I can not live my best life and maximize joy? So what does that process look like?
Right. So I'll get you to fill out your basically your medical history intake form and fill that out. That'll help me know before you come in to meet with me. That basically what type of neuropathy you have, and get to know a little bit about you. Then we'll have a Zoom call where I'll We'll get to meet each other. I'll get more history from you, and then we'll kind of talk through what's been going on with your neuropathy. And at the end of it, I'll have a tailored supplement and herb recommendation for you, as well as depending on what's going on in your life, handouts about lifestyle or exercise or different things like that. Yeah.
And what are their expectations? So then they would get the information, the recommendations from you. How would they get what they need? Is there an easy access link for them to order from? And then what does it look like after a follow-up?
Yes, yes. So after an appointment, you'll get an email with your supplement recommendations, and with it will also come a link to of where to buy the supplements. Just I since I spent so much time in supplement formulation and manufacturing, I'm pretty picky about the quality of my supplements. And so I have gone ahead and picked brands that I feel are in a good price range, but also I know for a fact that they're high quality. Whether it's been for me personally inspecting the production center or analyzing them in a lab back when I was in my research days or different things like that. Different ways I know these companies. Yeah.
Okay, so then they get, and then what, like, so then they start taking their supplements, and then after a couple weeks, do you have a check-in? Do they need to come follow back up with you, or how does that look?
Yeah. So 2 to 4 weeks after our initial appointment, I recommend a follow up and just to check in, see how it's going. Some people may find that it's going great and they don't want to change anything yet. Um, Quite a bit of people tend to get a lot of relief just from the first appointment and going on the initial supplements. If there is anything we need to change, say you're one of the rare people that, oh, my stomach didn't feel good from this supplement, then I would switch it out with its alternative. Or say your blood sugar levels aren't quite responding, we might have a talk again about what kind of exercise you could do, or we'll amend your protocol based on what you tell me in the follow up. Yeah, and then people frequently will have a third follow up, and yeah, it whatever it takes.
Okay, great. Okay, so the process is they would reach out to you, right? Is it on your website, or how do they reach out to you to schedule?
It is, yeah. Yeah, I have appointment booking and scheduling on my website, and the health intake form is on there as well. Once you sign up for an appointment, you'll be automatically directed to the health intake form.
Okay, great. So the process, just for everyone listening out there, is you'd go through the website, which is neuropathyherbalist.com. You would go ahead and schedule an appointment. And how does that work for scheduling? Do you schedule in a single appointment, or you just describe kind of a couple of series of appointments? So what are the options there, Trevor?
Right. So yeah. So I offer an initial client intake appointment, and you can purchase that separately and see how you feel about your supplement plan and see how it's going. And then you can schedule follow-ups subsequently if you want. Or I also have a package available with a discount where you can purchase the intake and two follow-ups at a discounted rate. Yeah.
Okay, so you can buy a package, or you can buy a single version to come see you. You fill out the intake form, you schedule a Zoom, then
Yeah.
you'd show up. It takes about 30 minutes or to an hour, I think 30 minutes about
Yeah.
to have the discussion with you. You'd get your specialized recommendations and an email of where to order these. Super easy to order them. You've already gone out there to identify the supplements that are the right price point and highest quality. And then they would need to schedule up a follow-up with you a couple weeks later if things aren't going well, and if they're having any issues, they'd contact you in between. And the reality is I think about you, and I met you many years after you've done this, but you don't really have any neuropathy anymore. You don't have any long-term systems, so you've gone back to live your best life.
I have. Yeah, I have. I had a mild flare up. So this was years later. I did a 650-mile canoe trip by myself. I was cataloging the medicinal plants of Alabama. So I started in the mountains up near Georgia, Rome, Georgia, and went into the Gulf of Mexico by canoe and was collecting plant specimens. But a couple weeks into that, I had my neuropathy in my hands flare up, and this was an interesting version. It was mechanic. It was from a mechanical action. So, and it was inflammation, and so it would go away. It would kick up in the morning and then go away after a couple hours. But it was interesting because I hadn't experienced inflammation induced. And you know what I did on the river is I pushed through it, and eventually, because I was out in the middle of nowhere, eventually I got some supplements and it calmed it down. And obviously, when I stopped paddling 14 hours a day in a canoe, that also helps it go away. So, but other than that, I don't really have, yeah, neuropathy doesn't really come back.
So if
So
someone doesn't want to go on a 600-mile canoe trip down Alabama, they probably should be safe from having a recurrence or some other wild interaction like that is what I just heard. So that's great news.
correct, correct. Now, like, a toxin induced, like say you were an alcoholic and you've stopped drinking and you're just kind of, getting your health straightened out, and we get you to a good place, your nervous system, if you started abusing alcohol again, it could come back. So if there was a stressor and you reintroduce the stressor, then you can cause it to come back.
That
So
makes
just
sense.
to, just be clear about that. But
What kind of hope? What are your final words? Like, what would you say to inspire people who are miserable right now with this feeling burning and,
yeah.
on fire and like this is a real issue? I know so many people who can't golf and pick up their grandkids or do the things they want to do because they're in pain. So, like, talk to us. Like, what would be your talk to these folks right now?
Look, I was there. At times I could barely pick up a spoon to eat. I couldn't sleep through the night. I just wake up in tears with my hands on fire and just nothing helped. This was in the days when I was on narcotics for all my painful fibromyalgia issues, and it didn't even touch it. And so all I can say is don't give up. There is hope. Keep pushing forward, keep trying things, and come and see me at the Neuropathy Herbalist. I'd love to be your guide.
I love that, guys. Well, I sure hope this helps. This is one of those things where I just want to make sure if you have not started treatment, there are things you can do to prevent neuropathy so that you will not have this pain. But if you have this pain, it is a miserable road because you feel all alone and the doctors just don't have anything in their toolbox that can support you. That's why I was so blessed to meet Trevor through the Consortium of Integrative Care Practitioners of Atlanta and learn his story and understand what he's brought to the table to really impact neuropathy. Of course, I was interested in chemo-induced neuropathy, but I know there's lots of other neuropathy out there. But for my listeners, I know that knowing that there is a solution that you can turn to outside of what your doctors have told you for neuropathy will be some of the best news they've ever heard. So I'm excited to be sharing this with our Mojo Rising listeners and really hopeful that this will begin to bring some support and really joy back into their living. So Trevor, I just want to say one more time, how can folks contact you?
So yeah, you can contact me at the neuropathyherbalist.com on my website, or you can, if you want to contact me directly, you can email me at info@neuropathyherbalist.com. And there's also a contact form on the website.
Awesome. And then will that contact form go directly to you?
It'll go to info, and then yeah, currently that'll be redirect.
Perfect. Wonderful. So you can either go straight to the website or email at info@neuropathyherbalist.com. That's a crazy spelling. So do you want to just quickly spell that for folks so they know how to get exactly to you?
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Neuropathy, neuropathy, herbalist, herbalist, herbalist.com.
Awesome, guys. You guys are now empowered to make cancer suck less when it comes to neuropathy. Trevor, thank you so much for spending another session with us so that we can make sure we get this really important message out to our listeners. And for all of you out there, I sure hope this helps and these knowledge bombs will help you live your best life. And as always, may you live long and lucky.
Disclaimer. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of MOJO Health Cooperative, LLC, a Georgia limited liability company, its respective officers, directors, employees, agents, or representatives. This podcast is presented by MOJO Health Cooperative and cannot be copied or rebroadcast without consent. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and not intended to supplant the expert advice and/or consultation of a medical doctor and/or a licensed physician and/or an attorney. In short, this podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice nor legal advice. The MOJO Health name and all forms and abbreviation are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. Again, none of the content of this podcast should be considered legal advice nor medical advice. As always, consult a lawyer and/or a licensed physician in lieu of relying upon the advice of any of the participants of this podcast. The host or hosts of this podcast are not licensed lawyers, physicians, doctors of osteopath, nor medical doctors in any jurisdiction anywhere. The hosts of this podcast do not practice medicine and do not profess to be able to do any of the following: 1. Diagnose, heal, treat, prevent, prescribe, or removing any physical, mental, or emotional ailment or supposed ailment of any individual. 2. Engage in the end of human pregnancy. 3. Treat human ailments. Nor 4. Perform acupuncture. MOJO Health Cooperative, LLC is not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast.